Good morning, day 307. We did the first two chapters of that second Thessalonians. So Paul has written a second letter. I'm walking through clouds this morning. It's beautiful. Okay, so I've entitled today, Keep Going. And that's it. This second Thessalonians is just 3 short chapters, so we'll finish tomorrow. And it's a pretty short letter that Paul is writing to basically encourage the believers to keep going, keep up, keep doing good, keep doing everything that your faith is prompting you to do. Don't be worried, don't be scared, don't fall into the temptation to think that it doesn't matter. Just to take heart. And now in this particular book or letter, Paul is addressing in this time period, they believe like Jesus' second coming is imminent. And they're already in sort of the end times. So he's addressing some specifics there. But for you and I, as readers in 2022, or whenever you're reading it, we're like, what? Although we just came out of a worldwide pandemic. So sometimes some of us are, feeling overwhelmed by that. And a lot of people, even during COVID, did kind of give up. They weren't able to take heart and keep going. Life gets overwhelming. And depending on your perspective, like, what do you do? What do you do when life gets overwhelming? I know I have been there. I have been there many times, and I've just like, oh, what's the point? Crack open the bottle of Chardonnay and at least escape for a few minutes at the end of a day. Like, okay, I'm overwhelmed. It's too much. Take a break and try again tomorrow. That was sort of my answer. And you might be similar. You might be turning to some things too, to in a not so healthy way, or overdoing it a little bit to deal with your feelings of overwhelm and tiredness, anxiety, like whatever labels you're using for how you feel. Like, what do you do when you feel like, does it matter? Should I keep going? What does it really matter? And it is, I think, easy for an individual human to feel like we matter. Like, does it really matter? Am I important? Am I an important player in the bigger scheme of millions and millions of people? And even those that have ever lived and will live, like, I'm insignificant. No, you're not. And you know why? And how I know that? Because you're living. You're here. You matter. Life matters. All life matters. And we all have our roles to play. And as long as we're living and we have breath in our lungs, we matter. And we have to we don't have to. Life becomes better when you become intrinsically motivated. When you intrinsically know that you matter. And intrinsic means that there's a sense of belonging. Like you belong to yourself, you belong to God, you belong, or whatever you believe in. You belong to other humans. Like, you matter. And until you take your last breath, you're fully alive. Heart's beating, blood is pumping, and many people are living in almost like they think and believe that they're kind of living in a state of limbo. Not really living, not really dead, maybe dead, feeling kind of dead inside. Call this unconscious living, where you're just floating along and just reacting. You're in reaction mode. That doesn't take a lot of intentionality, mental fortitude, to be intentional about life. You just are unconsciously responding to life. And that And I was there. So no judgment, no judgment. It keeps us busy. Sometimes when we're in reaction mode and caring for people or dealing with problems, it can make us feel very productive, very busy, very needed. And to live life from taking a deep breath, what am I here to do? What do I want to do? What is God calling me to do? What is mine to do? Is a whole different level of, and it takes a lot of upfront. It's like preventative living. You've got to upfront put in the effort and the mental effort. Heart, sit still. Just being busy, even though it might physically wear us out and even emotionally wear us out or mentally wear us out, it's not something that we have to really put a lot of investment of time into up front. And in many cultures, and I know America in particular, we worship at the altar of busy and hustle, and we feel bad if we're not, like if we sit down and plan and spend time on being organized and being intentional. Some people, or at least I know, I used to think that was maybe a waste of time. It didn't feel productive to me. Now is where I spend a lot of my time. I had to learn the hard way. And I had to really sit with myself and become intrinsically motivated. Look at that. It's so pretty. So pretty. Oh my gosh. Being in a cloud. Becoming intrinsically motivated and knowing. And the other thing that happens too, and I think this is of the enemy, whatever you think the enemy is, when we scatter all of our energy, our potential, and we're doing all of the stuff out here and just being kind of unconscious and in reaction mode, that's a lot of energy that if we could harness that and focus it, we could keep going. The analogy that came to me this morning was Bishop Desmond Tutu. I looked this up because I was like, who originally said this? I use it all the time. But how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And that is an analogy for being overwhelmed, anxious, when you get like, it just seems too big. What does it matter? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's shifting intrinsically to, okay, this is a big job, but it can be done. I can do it. And here's how. And living life more from that perspective acknowledges that you matter and that, yes, some things seem really big to do, but they're not impossible. They're doable. You just have to take a deep breath. And that is basically what Paul is doing. He didn't have that analogy back then, but he's basically like, it matters. Take a deep breath, keep going, and things will be okay. Okay, well, I am going to sign off today and keep it short and sweet. If you are not living life from this vantage point, you're not alone. It takes a lot of work to switch to this mindset and this way of being, knowing that you matter, and living from that attitude, that intrinsic position of I matter, I'm here for a reason, and even if the world ends tomorrow, how I show up today matters. When I know better, I should want to do better because then I feel better. When I know better and I don't do better, that causes pain. And that's where, and then I don't feel better. I feel, ugh. And then I stay stuck in that feeling of overwhelm, chasing my own tail. Me feeling like I'm putting a lot of effort in and going 2 steps forward, but then life pushes me, a few steps back. And then I'm like, I want to give up. And instead, when you're intrinsically motivated, it's a whole different way to live life. It has turned life for me into an adventure. And I think the way Paul writes and how he talks about it, this is how he's experiencing life. It's an adventure, and he's trying to encourage the church and the believers in Thessalonica to do the same thing. Keep going. It matters. You matter. And how you live your life matters. And God, if you have breath in your lungs, God's got something for you to do. And your faith and your intrinsic knowing that you matter and that you belong will help you stay tuned into what faith is calling you to do and how to be. All right. That is what I have for today. Rise and shine. I would love to know what you thought of today's reading. If you're tracking with me or wherever you're reading, you can connect with me online in all the ways. And I'd love to hear or even comment below this video. All right. I will see you tomorrow as we read chapter 3 of 2 Thessalonians. Rise and shine, even on a cloudy day.